Hey, Alberta, Mark Doran. It's April 2023. We're approaching the provincial election. I'm going to make a series of videos about Armisie Field in urban Edmonton. I'm 45 years in oil and gas, and I know what a safe site is and isn't, and Armisie Field simply isn't safe. It's a special area. We're going to deal with that. It's called the Edmonton Restricted Development Area. There's many unique problems here. And because of the election, I'm just going to share my screen. There are quite a number of people that should be involved in this matter, or at least, we can bring it to their attention and see what they might do about this during election. So the first one is the Honorable Nathan Neudorf, who is the Minister of Infrastructure. I'll come to why he's important. The next person that's involved here is the current MLA running for re-election, the Honorable Casey Madu. I've contacted him about the public safety issues here. He's not interested. He hasn't contacted me, at least. We have his opponent, Nathan Ip, who has contacted me. He's shown some concern. And then I think we have Rob Miyashiro. He is the candidate running for the NDP opposite Nathan Neudorf in Lethbridge East. And I think all of these candidates have right to know what's going on here so they can raise these matters at election time. Let's take a look. Where is Armisie Field? Here is urban Edmonton, and Armisie Field is located right here. It's on the south side of this Anthony Henday Drive, right on the riverbank. This is called Cameron Heights. Over here we have some really ritzy areas called Windermere, and this is right in the middle of the Edmonton Southwest Riding. And this right here, this is where you'll find the different well sites of Armisie Field, the Edmonton Restricted Development Area. That's where Anthony Henday Drive is. So if we go here, this is called Massacoshich Trail, and this is a Cree name. This former land. This is land formerly surrendered from the Enoch Cree Indian Reserve, Stony Plain Indian Reserve number 135. That's part of the reason why Armisie Field issues are unique, because there's different mineral ownership here because of former Indian Reserve lands. We've got private mineral ownership here, and it really makes the whole Armisie Field oil and gas matters quite interesting. And in fact, if we did a case study of all the problems in Armisie Field, we'd probably resolve virtually every surface lease issue in Alberta, virtually every power line issue or pipeline issue in Alberta. We have matters of trespass here. We have matters of overlapping jurisdiction here in a very complicated way. Armisie Field really has it all from an energy rule of law point of view. So, but there's been no case studies done here, and I think that's because all the parties are embarrassed that they didn't deal with the pure, blatant illegalities and lack of public safety here, because a major freeway runs right through it, and all these people's lives are at risk driving through this sour gas field every day because the emergency response planning hasn't been properly done here. And I'm going to do a whole series of videos on this for election time, because it's time Albertans really found out what's going on. But anyways, if we take this little man here and we drop it right there, we can have a look at Armisie Field, and I've done that and kind of focused in on it. So this is from Massacoshich Trail. It's just south of the Anthony Henday Drive. We're looking straight to the east, and we can see that we have these major power transmission lines. My fellow Albertans, this is the power that's powering the heartland. It's powering the entire city of Edmonton. It's powering all the refineries and many other industrial areas. And it's all at risk because it's illegally overlapping this little thing called the Armisie tank battery. So the distance from the edge of that right of way where these power lines are, which comes through right about here, there's a right of way right about there. The distance from that to this tank dike is exactly 12 meters. not exactly, but more or less 12 meters, when the minimum distance without a permit is 60 meters. So what happened is this old tank battery has been here since 1952 or so. And in 1983, this power line came over, and the tanks were up here, right underneath the power line, and they moved those tanks down to their present location here and here and here. And they didn't move them far enough away in 1983. So we have this problem now. Now, there's a property line that comes right through here. It's not really shown that this is private land out in the field here. And what we're looking at right in front of us where these trucks are, that's special crown land. That's called the Edmonton Restricted Development Area. And if you want to disturb the soil here, you have to have the written consent of the Minister of Infrastructure, who happens to be the Honorable Nathan Newdorf right now. So that means that if we want to move this power line, because either the power line or the tanks have to move. It's illegal. It's unsafe. Our power supply is in jeopardy. But in order to move this power line here, that creates a surface disturbance, and that triggers the Edmonton Restricted Development Area General Regulation. And same with if we want to move these tanks, that triggers a surface disturbance, and that triggers the same regulation. And in order for the Alberta Utilities Commission, who's in charge of this power line, to order this line to be moved, or to order the Alberta Energy Regulator, who's in charge of this facility here, for these tanks to be moved, they can't consider that issue. They can't have a hearing. They can't accept an application until they have the written consent of the Minister of Infrastructure. Now, I've asked the ministers of infrastructure in the past to do something here, and they said, no, it's the Alberta Energy Regulator, or no, it's the Alberta Utilities Commission. Well, I went to the court. I went to the Court of Appeal. And when they were trying to cite this substation right here. So here's the Edmonton Riverview substation right here. And when they wanted to cite this here, I raised all these issues, and Mr. Justice of Appeal, Brian O'Farrell, he clarified all these points. So now we have clarification from the Court of Appeal, and at election time in Alberta, it's time to deal with the lack of public safety here once and for all. So I'm just going to pause. We're going to look at a different satellite map. I'm going to show the area where there's been lots of sour gas venting across the freeway from this facility. So here we are in a Google Earth image. There's Armisie Field right there. We're going to zoom into it. What I've done is I've shown the red line. That's the boundary of the transportation utility corridor, the Edmonton Restricted Development Area. So above the red line, this is the special area where the infrastructure minister and his delegates are in charge, and below the red line, that's private property. So there's a number of things we can see here. First of all, the overpass. We want to zoom in on the tank battery. That's the big offending operations here, although there are lots of other offending operations. We've got an incineration stack here. It's too close to that overpass by law. We've got these big power lines here. You can just see them here. They're overlapping the north part of the tank battery, too close to these tanks. These tanks are too close to this boundary. There's a cell phone tower here. It's got all sorts of electrical equipment that's not explosion proof rated. It's too close to that incineration stack here, etc. We've had a lot of, I'm going to do some separate videos on the causes of sour gas emissions in this area. So I'm not going to get into that now, but I have on many occasions reported sour gas enveloping the freeway or in the general area here. For example, on one occasion, I came out here and there's workers on the cell phone tower, and they were flaring through the incineration stack, but the incineration stack wasn't lit. And so we had this big, huge plume of sour gas that I'm going to show here, originating from this point and extending way out here, something like this. So this was more or less the plume the directional plume because of the wind direction that I found on that day. There was people working up above the throat of the incineration stack. They were from Ontario. They didn't know what sour gas was. They were working above it. Luckily, the wind was directing it just slightly away from where they were working. So that's what I found one day. On another time, I found sour gas just a few days after that incident, encompassing a very large area, something like this. Sorry, when the camera's on, something like this. I found a very large area on a still day. The AR inspector came out, and we waited for hours. The operator said they were going to send someone, and in fact, they sent their security guy up from Calgary. So we waited for hours, and meanwhile, I walked in with the inspector here from the area, and then her H2S detector went off here. So there's been other instances. One of the more recent times I went out here, there was a truck loading the oil from here, and then as we drove up, as we came in and were driving up here on this ramp, we could smell the extreme stench of sour gas and came out, and then it was because the truck wasn't properly loading those tanks. There wasn't a sealed pressurized truck. So just even not properly unloading the tanks in this area can cause sour gas emissions in the area. And let's be clear that this operator must keep its odors and its gas, more importantly, its gas on site. The AR just treats this as a matter of odors, but it's a matter of life and death. It's a matter of trespass. These gases must be kept on site by law, and they're just not doing it here. So now the other thing we can see is that we can see the ground disturbance here, and here, where the route of the precious Trans Mountain pipeline goes. This ground disturbance here, I know very well because I represented these landowners. This is a work area. So the Trans Mountain pipeline is a large diameter pipeline, very big, and you can't bend it very well. So they're needed to weld up. This work area here was needed to weld up that pipeline. And there was a horizontal drill done underneath the freeway. And then the previously welded up section was drug underneath here. And so that's the Trans Mountain Pipeline's in very close proximity to these operations. This is the Riverview substation. It's a high voltage switching of high voltage power, 250 kilowatts or 240 kilowatts, creates sparks. There's gas emitting from its explosive gas in air. If it's within 5 to 15% in air, it's explosive. And this location was originally planned over here. I got it moved a little bit further away, but it's still sort of doubtful whether this is safe here. And nevertheless, it probably wouldn't have been safe in its original location. That all was a real long involved procedure here. And that's where I appealed the decision of citing this station to the Court of Appeal, where Mr. Justice of Appeal, Mr. Brian O'Farrell, was kind enough to write in his decision. The case is called Doran versus EPCOR, a 2020 decision, that in fact, the Minister of Infrastructure is in charge here and does have power over the Alberta Energy Regulator, who's supposed to be making sure we're safe from this oil and gas operation here, and the Alberta Utilities Commission is supposed to be making sure that we're safe for this operation here. Now, we have the Canadian Energy Regulator in charge of this pipeline here. And these are some of the reasons. There's jurisdiction overlaps with the Minister of Transportation, who's in charge, make sure that this overpass is never built within 850 meters of this flare stack. That distance is too short. I could go on and will go on at length. I could make probably 8, 10 to 12 hours worth of videos about the lack of public safety here, the absolute disregard for the energy laws of Alberta. We have good laws, and the problem of there's so many overlapping jurisdictions here, so many bodies between the safety codes, provincial bodies, city authorities, the two energy regulators, the Surface Rights Board. Surface Rights Act doesn't apply here, so the energy regulator got that wrong. I can go on, and will go on if necessary in videos during election time, because whoever gets elected here needs to run on these issues. Who's going to fix this? Who's going to make sure 105,000 people a day are safe going through here? And I can tell you this so far, Mr. Casey Maddie won't call me. Mr. Nathan Ip, who is a candidate, has called me. He's at least showed some concern. But we need more than concern. We need solutions. So join me. I'm going to be making these videos. I'm going to be giving them out to whatever journalists that will show. I'm going to be posting them somewhere so people can see them. I'm going to be trying to use the election issue here to solve these problems once and for all. Join me. Let's make sure people are safe in this area. Thank you very much.